And also the chat will be transcribed as well, and we'll be using the chat to help with voting and with taking roll call. All votes need to be done using your name and then saying Y, yes or no, or A for abstain. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start this special meeting. So I'll put that in the chat. And this special meeting is determined that we want to stay virtual in our meetings. So the language that's on the agenda is this group has reconsidered the circumstances of the emergency and agrees that the emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. So then this meeting, the next meeting will be virtual. So if everybody would please vote yes or no in chat for that statement, we can get to the regular meeting if we have a affirmative. So anybody who's able to vote on this committee, please type into your chat yes or Y or no. It's like we have a majority of the group that is here. So moving on. So now that we're we've gotten through the special meeting, we're now going to move into the start of the regular meeting. Got in there. And then if everybody would please say or type present next to their in the chat, and then that way that will be our attendance for tonight. So, and then we will now open the committee meeting to any public comment. And because we're not seeing anybody that is not on the meeting, we have these meetings now are open to the public, so a public member could join, but I'm not seeing any non-members in the meeting. So, and I didn't see any emails sent to the generic email address. So open public comment, and now we'll close public comment. And then Johannes, if you want to start taking over with approving minutes and working through the agenda, and I will be listening in and available. And the one other piece on the agenda moving forward is we won't need to do the last part, voting again to stay virtual, because we're actually going to be 31 days to the next meeting, and the window is 30 days. So we'll just, the Wellness Committee will have another special determination meeting at the beginning of the next meeting on the 22nd of February. All right. Thank you. So I think the next item is to approve the minutes of they're linked in. Oh, I don't see them. Are we seeing the access issues with the minutes? I just clicked on them and I wasn't able to get there. Johannes, I think if you're speaking, I'm not hearing you, but you look unmuted.
Hi, are you able to? Okay, sorry about that, everyone. I was actually talking. So, yeah. So, as Bart said, the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes. And if you go into, sorry, Bart, I don't actually have access to give you, but I believe all the committee members can access the draft minutes. So if you can't, actually let me know in the chat or let us know in the chat. But if you want to go ahead, click on it, and if you haven't already taken a look, and see if there's anything that you would like to request changed, and we can discuss that. And if you remember, this is the meeting from November 9th, so this is a little while ago. So I'll go ahead and just give a couple minutes, and then we'll discuss and then make a motion to approve.
Johannes, when there is a motion or a vote or a motion, if you type whatever it is at the beginning of the chat, that also helps delineate the next, the next item or whatever. So you could say draft minutes and then whenever the vote is.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, hopefully everyone had a chance to go through and read these minutes. The main points were the wellness policy and the mental health impact. I actually do have, I guess I'll start off. It said in the wellness policies, Johannes, Eunice, and Linda. This is actually spearheaded by Anna, Eunice, and Linda. So I'll go ahead and make a note on that to have that corrected. I can't actually correct it. I'm not sure, Amir. Do you have rights to correct that? And Bart, is that something that can be corrected right here, right now?
I don't have access to the document, so I wouldn't be able to do it right now.
Okay.
But would we just make a motion to put a note, and so that could be drafted, and we could just pass the amended document without having to make it up or change it right now?
That's
yep. You can vote on. That's correct. You vote on the changes that you mentioned in this conversation, and that can pass there.
So I'll go ahead and make a note of that, and I'll put that in the chat when we're all done. Does anyone else have any other changes they would for the meeting minutes? So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat, and then Amir, would you like to call the vote?
Okay. Well, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes. If anybody would like to second the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. And
Okay, so we'll go ahead and vote with a yes or no in the chat. So just a side note here, Anna is actually driving. She's in the meeting, but she's on her phone, so I don't think she's able to vote and shouldn't probably not be considered for the majority here. So it looks like we do have a majority with the 4 yes votes to approve the minutes, to approve the change. And then I believe we need another vote to approve the minutes. Is that correct?
One should be fine.
Okay. All right. So it looks like this motion passes. And I believe we can wrap that up and move on to the next agenda item. So on the agenda here is the BP wellness policy and AR policy. And the members of the committee will remember that we are going through these for the triennial assessment. And there is a link in the agenda to the FUSD board policy and AR compared to the California School Board Association model policy. This I guess project for the committee was actually being done by 3 members who are actually not here this evening. So I think we should go ahead and have a vote or a motion to vote on tabling this policy until the next meeting, because it is pretty in-depth stuff, and I don't think we'll be able to go through it here with this group right now. It's kind of something that they've been doing outside of the wellness policy or the wellness meetings. So if we can get a vote for that. So
Yeah. I definitely agree. So yeah, I'll make a motion to table that agenda item until the next meeting. If everyone wants to second that.
Okay, so I just put in the chat. I hope I just put in the chat what we're voting on, and if everyone can go ahead and vote. Okay, that looks again like the majority. So we'll have to table that for next time. There is a time frame on this, so we definitely do need to go through it. But hopefully, I think I can't really tell if the agenda split for the survey. This is a survey regarding the wellness policy and the I guess if the school sites are following the policy as is written, and it was that subcommittee or that small group that was working on this. So if it looks like this was scheduled for 20-30 minute discussion, and I think we're going to have to go ahead and table this one as well. So I'll go ahead and type that into the chat. So vote to table the survey relating to wellness policy compliance for school sites. All right, so Amir, would you want to call the vote?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll make a motion to vote. Like it says, to table the survey relating to mental wellness policy compliance until the next meeting. And if everyone can vote in the chat, yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. All right, I think that's all the voting members here voted yes on that. So, okay, so the next item on here is the mental health implementation metric. And we do have 20 to 30 minutes scheduled for this. Amir, maybe you can put some, paint this one a little bit.
Right. So last time when we were looking over the differences in the policy, we noticed that in the implementation section of the policy language, there was a lot of implementation metrics associated with physical health, but not a lot with mental health. So we decided to take the time between meetings to think about ways that we could add a metric for mental health in that section. Everybody should have access, I think, to the spreadsheet where we have those implementation metrics listed, the ones that we approved at the last, or the ones that we listed as approved for the last meeting. And yeah, if anybody has any ideas of what kind of implementation metric we would want to add regarding mental health, I think now would be the time to share it. Just myself, I was talking to some people at my school, and something that came up a lot was the idea of just stating that the school district should conduct a survey on a regular basis to assess the mental health needs of the student population and how effective the programs that the school district and the school was offering for mental health were at the time. So I think that could be an option of saying something around the lines of the school district or should conduct a regular survey on student mental health needs. And then we could maybe have if anybody can think of specific factors that we would need in that survey, that would be interesting as well. But does anybody else have any ideas for that metric?
I'm sorry, do we have some kind of list of metrics that we already talked about, or is it something entirely new? Because you mentioned some spreadsheet, and I don't recall seeing one.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Thanks.
This is a spreadsheet that we went over last time in regards to the implementation plan. I think I linked it properly so that it'll go to the right sheet where we have the metrics color coded. Is that what?
Yeah, I do see it. The green, red, and orange or yellow.
Yeah, okay, but we didn't talk about metrics of mental health, not something specific. I just like, I don't want to say the same ideas that we already talked. So it's new. Yeah.
Right. So
it's like your idea about the survey is the first idea that we have.
I believe so. I mean, last time we discussed the fact that we needed a mental health metric, but we just decided to put that discussion until this meeting.
Yes, that's what I think. Just wanted to be sure. Okay.
Right.
So about the survey, you thought about some kind of individual for each student, or something more like for each class, for each school?
For the people that I was talking with, for the students that I talked to at my school, it sounded more like an individual thing, so that I guess the district would have that sort of data on where everyone is at. And a thing that kind of called to mind was like the Stanford survey that we did a while ago. And so maybe just doing something like that on a more regular basis. But I don't know if the district has the capacity to do that. Is that something that anybody else here would know about?
You know, I'm not sure. Go ahead, Bart.
Yeah, the district does have the capacity to send out surveys, and we do have a kind of a satisfaction survey that goes out every year. So I know that is part of probably a LCAP or some regulatory combination of getting some data around that. So working through the instructional services group, I'm sure that they could get a wellness survey set up.
So we also have the capacity to analyze these surveys once we get the results.
Yeah, we would want to make sure the design of the survey provided data that was mappable or graphable. So when you have an open question, you have a lot of subjective information. But if you have, let's say, ratings 1 to 10, or satisfied, not satisfied, nervous, scared, whatever those pieces are, if you have selectable parts to those surveys, then you can use them over year and say that this has changed compared to, last year's survey.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and would it be possible maybe to make surveys for teachers and see what they think, let's say, about their class, about their students, what are the problems that they see in mental health? Or is it too complicated?
I'll chime in again as a guest member tonight, but one of the pieces of communicating with the teachers is we work through the teachers union. So either the representative on this committee or reaching out to the FUDTA, our teachers union, I'm sure they would be helpful and wanting to be part of that, but that would be the first connection, so that we were communicating through their union and had the right, questions that weren't, moving into privacy issues or some other, I'm not sure exactly what they would be, but you would want it to be vetted by their bargaining group or their union.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just as a side note, a lot of the high schools have wellness centers, like at least Irvington does, and I know a couple of other high schools do. So maybe we could work with them to at least determine some kind of parameters for mental health on high school sites. I think that would be useful because they're most of their work centers around mental health.
So in regards to the metric that we're talking about here, do you think that we could ask those wellness centers for some input on what they would like to see addressed in it, or how are you seeing the wellness centers collaborating with us?
Yeah, so depending on, I'm sure the leaders at the wellness centers would probably know the main student needs in terms of mental health at the school sites, and then also maybe we can facilitate the surveys through them, or we can get input on what questions we should put in the survey from them, because they're on the ground and they probably know more than we would, or adults would, about what students need, or what they're lacking right now, or just generally what their conditions are.
Okay, so in addition to just having a survey that goes out to students, we could maybe also have a survey that goes out to these wellness centers, and just to get an overall idea of what their view of it is. Does that sound like kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. So does anyone here know exactly how the wording of that would work if we were to write it down? Because it's asking for indicators, so would it be something along the lines of a analysis of student wellness, student mental health at school sites as facilitated through a regular survey, or something like that would meet the needs of what we're talking about here in this format that we have?
we do have a comment from one of the members saying, are we trying to create our own survey or use one which is standardized?
I think that's a good question. I don't know whether this implementation metric would we would even be able to like distinguish what kind of survey would be implemented, because so I guess the question that I have is, would we be able to get that specific with this implementation metric, or is it just telling the district that this is what we want them to measure, and then the district would then determine the way of accomplishing that measurement?
Yeah, if Bart doesn't have anything to suggest on that, I would suggest that, yeah, it would have to come from us. I think the wording, I mean, it would probably have to go through the approval process, as Bart referenced, but I think we would, you know, put down our thoughts, and then, you know, that would be sent.
Yeah, and also chiming in, it would be, as a committee, you would be making suggestions towards those questions and the goals of your survey. And then it would be a blend of how the district could respond to get those questions out there. Maybe they would tag them along with the satisfaction survey, or maybe it would be just a standalone survey that was more focused on mental health. And they would also, folks would probably also be helpful to say, the counselors as well as the wellness centers, in the language of that survey, to get good data, instead of just, you know, are you sad? What, you know, go here, or is this a problem? You know, press yes or no. There's probably some subtle ways to ask those questions and define, you know, better data from those questions. So I think it would probably be a blend, but if you did approach, if you guys were able to set up something you voted on and agreed to, then you could hand it off to Greg and he could approach the district level pieces there.
Right. So just to summarize, we would have to have kind of a more specific in-depth of what is specifically the survey would entail.
It would make it closer to what you guys were hoping for, I think, is
right.
the more specific it was, and how it would be implemented and when it could be done. That would be back and forth between the district and potentially FUTA. I know that the satisfaction survey that goes out goes to both staff and parents and students. So there is some data out there that is, you know, across the district. So it would make sense to ask everybody in the district these questions as well, because you're looking for the widest audience of wellness and mental health.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that a committee member just put a link in the chat to a document called the Global School-Based Student Health Survey. And this is an example survey. It's pretty lengthy, but I'm sure 40 pages. You know, maybe this could be used, I don't know, in this discussion, or something that could be done offline to develop with another subgroup or subcommittee.
Right. So honestly, I feel like I personally don't know or have the right expertise to understand what specific questions would be the best for measuring student mental health. And I know that Ms. Sorensen is the counselor at American, but she's not here today. So I don't know if anybody else on this committee would have that kind of knowledge, but maybe is there another committee at the district that might have a more in-depth knowledge of these surveys, or somewhere else that we could go for information, maybe bring to the another meeting so we can compile some information, and then at the next meeting be a bit more informed on how specifically we would want the survey to look.
I can reach out to the, a couple of the branches of the district to see if there's possibly the equity committee, maybe just in, finding out feedback from folks and looking for gaps and things like that. So maybe there's some language and some strategies that they might have. So I can check in with Greg and ask him if there's some other resources at the district level. And it seems like if anybody had other ideas for the questions, you guys could go over any other open questions that, oh, I really think that, like, that was we saw in that link, it was a huge list of questions, but maybe there are some good themes, like the topics of that, like, oh, drinking or sleeping or distracted, suicidal thoughts, or whatever, whatever those things that people feel like we've heard that we're concerned about. If we bring them up now, then they'll be in the record a little bit for your next discussion too, if anybody had more to say.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking this could be, put on the agenda for next meeting, and we could bring in, survey questions or themes, as Bart said.
Right, because yeah, I mean, I definitely personally don't feel comfortable like defining what is necessary to assess student mental health when I don't have like the expertise or the knowledge around that right now. I mean, but does anybody else have anything else that they would want to add? Because it sounds like we might want to just look over some more information between now and the next meeting, and hopefully next time when we come back, we'll have more people to put in their input. And because I know that there are a lot of other people with various degrees of experience and various degrees of background knowledge that might be helpful to address this at the next meeting. So does anybody else have anything they would want to add before we maybe moved on? Devanshi, you said in the chat the LCAAC committee. Do you know? Could you tell me what specifically like the focus of that committee is? I haven't heard of them before.
Yeah, so I was on LCAC last year. Basically, they formulate the LCAP plan, which we submit to like the Alameda board, to like the Office of Education over there to like get approved, and it basically outlines all of like the goals and outcomes that we want for our students in FUSD and like how we're going to go about achieving that. And it has like multiple parameters like student achievement, engagement, school climate, student outcomes, parental involvement, like basic services, and like whether or not we've implemented state standards and like all of that. And then like there's a special focus on like foster youth, homeless youth, and low income students as well. And like throughout the year last year, we would like send surveys out to like parents and students to kind of get their feedback, because a lot of the plan, the LCAP plan, is like designed around what like students feel like they're lacking in, or what they need more resources in, or like even what parents feel that their kids need more resources in. So yeah, I think they're pretty like they've done a lot of surveys like over the years. So I think maybe they might be able to help out with that. So I think mental health is also like one of their parameters to like measure student outcomes and stuff. So yeah, it could be helpful, I think. I can reach out to the other SURF representative on that committee to see if they'd be willing to help out.
Yeah, that would be great. Especially just to see like what their process is, and researching and narrowing down the specific themes and questions that they would have on the committee. So yeah, it would definitely be great to reach out to them. Does anybody else have anything else they would want to add on this topic before going on? If not, Johannes, should we, has it been 20 minutes? Should we move on to the next?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the time, I think because we tabled those two other items, there is quite a bit of time. The next agenda item is actually, Bart said we can go ahead and skip that because of the time frame, because the next meeting is in 31 days. So that would be it for the meeting, unless you want to keep, if we want to keep talking about this.
It looks like there's also a topics agenda if people want to bring up something.
Oh, correct. Yeah. Or we can move on to that.
Right. I see that Eunice just joined. Hi, Eunice. Just to catch you up, we were talking about the mental health implementation metric that we were discussing at the last meeting, and it sounded like we were just about to end that discussion because we were looking to look for more information. But I mean, do you have anything that you would like to add about how to implement a mental health metric in the implementation plan section of what we were looking at the last meeting?
Yes. I think if I remember correctly, like I know we were discussing, so in the agenda, also sorry I was late by the way, but anyways, back to the agenda. So I see like before the mental health implementation metric, there's the survey. So are these like the same thing in that we're sending out the survey to assess the mental health, or are these like two different things? Sorry, I just wanted to clarify.
So the survey, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was for the school sites for their compliance with the wellness policy. I believe we discussed that last meeting, just to see if they were, complying with what was in there and to see the extent.
Okay, that makes sense. So then this is like a separate thing.
Correct, yeah.
All right. I mean, I know there's like, I remember like last year there was like I know like there's already a mental health survey that's being sent out to like the students, I think. So is this going to be something new, I guess, or are we looking to like ask the admin to do this, I guess is my question. I don't know. Sorry, I wasn't here for the earlier discussion on this topic.
Yeah, I was also a bit confused on that too, because so if we already have mental health services that we've used before, would it be possible, like, this is, to my understanding, so is this just like codifying the indicators that the district needs to assess into the wellness policy if we add this in where we have it on the spreadsheet? And so this would just be telling the district to measure this measure their effectiveness in addressing student mental health, and then could we maybe assess these different mental health surveys that we've used so far and see like which one of these we might want to suggest using for this purpose?
That makes sense to me.
Right. Okay, because I feel like the other thing that we were talking about is like discussing our own survey of and then like discuss and kind of building it up from scratch and discussing like what topics and what questions we'd want to have in the survey. But I mean, if you're saying that, like you said, we already kind of have a couple of mental health surveys that we've already had in the district, maybe just like looking over these and seeing which one we'd like to recommend to the district in terms of its overall goal of measuring student mental health and these indicators.
Yeah, I mean, if I guess the idea is like to make a new survey, I mean, we could always go look at the ones that are already in place and then just like select the ones we think are, important and then make our own. I mean, either option works though.
Right. Does anybody know if there would be a way to get a list of the mental health surveys that the school district has used in the past or has used in the past few years, and if we could take a look at them for the next meeting?
We could probably ask Mr. Bailey, hopefully. No? I mean, that seems like the best person to ask. Unless anyone here does know.
I think that asking Mr. Bailey is a good idea. And then it may be that if it's the satisfaction survey, that would be the instructional services team. But if it is a mental health survey that potentially came out of counselors at the high school levels, then it might be that we reach out to a counselor to see if they have not necessarily a district-wide survey, but a survey that is that was sent, maybe to each attendance area or each high school. So it might be that that's what you were thinking when you were talking about a mental health survey, because I don't think the district at the district level is asked us specifically around mental health that I know of.
Okay, that sounds good. So just to summarize, we would ask Mr. Bailey for kind of this overall view of surveys that mental health surveys that have gone around at schools, and see if we could compile ideas from these surveys. Got a comment in the chat about Devanshi said that I think the district conducted a survey called Mental Health Stigma Reduction Youth Survey for junior high and high schools in 2019. Not sure if they're still doing this. That's a good question about sending these to elementary, middle school, and high school, or just high school. I think it would be good. Just personally, I think it would be good to send it to as many students as we could. I don't know if that would change how if we could implement this effectively. Does anybody have any insight on whether that would change how the district could do this?
Well, if we're creating our own survey, then it might be, maybe we could do it to everyone, because I mean, at least when I think about it, probably the biggest consideration or limitation to sending out to everyone would probably be cost. So I don't know if we make our own, then I guess that's not really a problem, and so then I think it could be possible.
I would also add that I think whenever we're contacting anyone under 13, there's some layers of privacy and parent feedback. And so I'm guessing, I sort of remember the mental health stigma survey, but it went out to junior high. So I'm guessing that's part of the reason why the quality of the questions and how they're answered would depend on the audience as well. So if you had wider, simpler questions, you could anticipate getting answers maybe from parents, students at the elementary level. But you kind of want to think you're always communicating with the parent whenever a student is under 13, just for clarity and privacy rules and kind of working with a student under 13 is not the best or not the easiest person to communicate if they don't have stuff explained to them, or if you had advanced concerns about drinking or some feeling scared or whatever. You'd want to make sure that the parents had a way to work with that student to get that information. You wouldn't just be reaching directly out to anybody under 13. And that's also a like FERPA, federal laws and stuff.
Right. So, yeah, I guess that's something to keep in mind for when we're thinking about how we want to address this at the moving forward. Does anybody else have anything they want to put out there? I guess just last thoughts or anything else that we want to address with this survey, because I think what we're thinking of doing is just trying to compile a list of surveys that have been used before to see if like any already achieve this purpose, and if not, then to just kind of better inform our own decision making. But yeah, again, does anybody have anything else that they would like to say? If not, the next agenda item I think would then be topics for next meeting. We already know that we're gonna bring up the wellness policy and the survey because we tabled at this meeting. Does anybody else have any topics that they'd like to discuss for the next meeting?
This seems good. One thing I have is I know in the chat it says I think this is a good idea. We can ask the counselors which surveys they use and then go from there. So do we want to have compiled a list of what surveys are being used by the time we meet? I guess next month. Or is that something we would do later?
I'm thinking that would probably be ideal, but I mean, it would probably be on what Mr. Bailey would be able to get. I think. Does anybody else know how that would work?
I guess we could reach out to him as a starting point and then get more information. And yeah, for example, then maybe we can ask the counselors and stuff. But I think that's a good starting point.
Okay.
Okay, so just I guess one last time, does anyone have anything else for the meeting? Like Amir said, we'll be going over the wellness policy survey and the mental health implementation metric again. And if nobody has anything else, then we'll bring this meeting to a close. So I'll give a second for anyone in chat. Okay, thanks.
Thank you to everybody for being patient at the beginning of the meeting, and I'll pass along the recording and everything to Mr. Bailey as well, and appreciate any volunteering for the district. It's always really helpful to have feedback from students and parents. So thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.